Hello, welcome to another edition of the Pace Report. I'm Brian Pace. Over the last 10 years here on the Pace Report, I've had an honor and privilege to sit down and break bread with some of the most important, if not iconic, jazz musicians that have shaped the music world over the last 50 years. And tonight here on the Pace Report, I'm honored to introduce you to a gentleman who I've interviewed here on the Pace Report a couple of times, Harlem native guitarist and composer and educator Bobby Broom. As you might know, Bobby, over the last 20 to 30 years, has lived in Chicago, but has played with the likes of the legendary NEA jazz master Sonny Rollins, another Harlem native. But tonight, he's playing music from his brand new album entitled Soul Fingers, and his brand new ensemble is called Bobby Broom and the Organi-Sation. Now, Bobby has also played in the regular trio setting, which comprises of the bass as well as the drums. But tonight he's going back to his real soulful roots, which is with the organ. Now tonight's group features the great Kobie Watkins on drums, as well as Ben Paterson on the Hammond B3. And they're playing music from their current record. It's called Soul Fingers, which is now available on iTunes as well as Amazon.com. Tonight I had a chance to sit down briefly with Bobby to talk about this brand new record, why he likes playing in an organ ensemble, as well as reflect on some of his important musical heroes and what jazz music did as far as soul jazz in the 60s to American contemporary music. So sit back, relax, and enjoy highlights of Mr. Bobby Broom and this Organi-Sation live here on the Pace Report, reporting live from Dizzy's here in New York City. Welcome home. It's always good to see you, Bobby.
Thank you. Great to be here as usual.
You know, every time I have interviewed you or have interacted with you, it was always with the Blue Deep or the Deep Blue organ trio.
Mhm.
And now, tonight, the world is getting ready to see your brand new music unit.
Yeah, it is new to a lot of people. You know, it's interesting though because we've been together now for going about 5 years. We started in 2014, and so here we are. Damn, that's 5 years.
Now, if memory serves me correct, you guys got together when you toured with Steely Dan.
Absolutely correct. That's right. So, you know, Deep Blue Organ Trio did an opening a tour as an opening act for Steely Dan in 2013. After that tour was, 3 months, 50 cities plus, and the group broke up. So the following summer, 2014, I get a call. Need you to play. Need your group. I said, great. I had a new record coming out with the trio, the bass, acoustic bass, and guitar and drums trio. And that's what they said they wanted, the Bobby Broom trio. So I said, perfect. We had My Shining Hour was about to drop. So I said, this would be great. A national record release tour, so to speak. Last minute, they said, no, we don't want the bass. We want organ. I said, well, I don't have an organ group. So, well, just put something together. It's all right. Well, it's not quite that easy. Personnel and chemistry is a delicate thing. You can't just throw something. I said, Walter Becker and Donald Fagen, they know that, So I said, thanks, but no thanks, respectfully. And my drummer at the time, Micaiah McCraven, called me on the phone. He said, man, what are you doing? I said, what do you mean? He said, man, you can't not do this. I'm coming over. We're going to look at our phones and talk this out. But you got to do this tour. So Micaiah was having the baby, and so was Kobie. So they had to split the tour. But when we came across Ben Paterson's name, it stirred something in me. Just from my memory of hearing him play. He was a Chicago resident for a few years. And we never played together. But I just remembered him, and something stirred in me. I don't really understand quite what it was, other than, kind of like destiny or fate or something like that. Because when we got together, it turned out to be good, So we did that tour. That was the beginning of the group.
Mm-hmm. This album, I've listened to this a couple of times. Mm-hmm. And the song selection on here is really Bobby Broom's music collection,
right? Exactly.
Late '60s to the '70s.
Exactly. Well, I do that. I mean, I've been doing that now for the last going on 20 years. Is just calling my old favorites and finding the ones that I can speak well on the guitar and that seem appropriate for the instrument and my voice. And those are the things that I play. So I had the opportunity to do that again in this new setting. When the group started, we had 25, 30 minutes slots as the opening act for Steely Dan. So I had to pack 3 songs in that were going to hit the audience in the way that I wanted to. I didn't want the tomatoes thrown at me or just to be ignored. So we did a good job, and one of the things that I think helped with that was playing the right music. So, I had recorded Superstition and Layla and things like that already, House of the Rising Sun. And so I just pulled from that repertoire, and that's what we played. And people love, that demographic, that's their music. It's my music. It's the same. We're Steely Dan's fans are around my age, and it went over great. So I thought when it was time to do this record, let's continue on that track. So that's what I did. And it's easy to find that material for me. It's the hardest thing is to realize whether or not I can make it work on the guitar. You know, there's certain songs that I love, but they just don't translate. Like one of them we tried was that "To Sir with Love" by Lulu. That was that's still one of my all-time favorite
It's a beautiful
songs.
song.
Yes, and it doesn't work. It's just a little too repetitious.
Can you do it in a trio setting?
Maybe, but you know, it just on the guitar it just didn't. It's just not enough. That song needs a vocalist.
Yeah.
You know, there's something about a voice and what you can do in combination with the words that is real difficult to get on an instrument sometimes. And that was one of those cases, so I had to let that one go.
I was amazed when I heard your revisioning of George Harrison / the Beatles, Gently My Guitar Weeps. You brought in two Brazilian guitarists for this.
Yeah, yeah. You know, so Steve Jordan produced the record, and in our discussions, you know, pre-production or whatever you want to call it, he says, well, you know, you got to do a bossa nova, okay, because all great records, you need a bossa nova on the record. So I thought, okay, let me think of what can I do, and I think my son was very enamored with the Prince. We call it the Prince version, the American Music Awards version, where Prince takes the solo on that and then throws the guitar up, and then his solo is phenomenal. My son thinks he wrote the song, so I had to play him the original version and explain the interpretation, what he was doing, the whole thing. So I guess that song was on my mind.
Wasn't that
And I
that was
thought,
that
good
that was
bossa
yeah
nova.
yeah.
He'll work as a bossa nova, and I just went. I've got some ties to some people. The one person in particular that I work pretty regularly with in Chicago, who's from Bahia, singer, guitarist, and I went to him to get the real deal.
That's it. That's it. Another standout track is an original that you wrote, Eyes of Faith, and
Thanks.
you brought strings in this.
Yeah. There's a phenomenal arranger in Chicago named Matt Jones, and so we recorded the tracks, and we said, "Man, this song needs something. What do you hear?" And I said, "Well, I kind of hear a string quartet if I had my druthers." And then it dawned on me, wait a minute, you met this brother like a couple of months ago, and everybody was saying he was this great arranger. He was playing the piano at the time, and so I had to find him. It was like do some investigative work, and I found him and listened to his demo reels and stuff, and he's the real deal. Like, yeah, super arranger, orchestrator, really, really, really talented guy. So he did it. He did us a solid on 2 songs. We used him. Yeah.
You are going and paying homage to those great soul jazz records in the late 60s and early 70s. And when I think of this record, I think of guys like Dr. Lonnie Smith and Lou Donaldson with the Alligator Boogaloo. And I noticed that jazz, when it comes to a trio in the organ form, there's a groove and a funkiness and a grit that you can't get with a regular trio.
Yeah, I wonder what that is. If it's just like the...
Is it church? You think it's church based?
Oh, there you go. See? Good. You gave me the answer. That's some of it. Yeah, I mean, there's spiritual connection to the church. I mean, everything we do, hopefully, everything I do is connected, has that lineage of, African diaspora musically, which includes the church, which includes blues, the rhythms. And so there's a line of folks that I draw from. I just watched the Sam Cooke documentary.
I just saw that too.
And
Brilliant.
I didn't know. I mean, because I was obsessed with Live at the Copa when I was 8 years old. I used to be in my living room up there, mimicking. I had line for line, word for word, rhythm for rhythm. I was mimicking everything he did on that record. So when they said, "Oh, you got to get to Live at the Harlem Club," that's the blackest of them all. And I said, "Really? I can't imagine that." So yeah, they were telling the truth.
Listen. Now,
They were telling the truth.
the reason why that record is so authentic is 2 words: King Curtis.
Is that King Curtis?
That's King Curtis.
Woo! Yeah. And now we need a pound of fatback drums.
Yeah,
I used to have that one too.
That's Live at the Fillmore West.
Right. Yeah.
Bernard Purdy,
Yeah.
Billy Preston, the
Cornell
Memphis,
Dupree?
Cornell Dupree, Memphis Horns. That was a bad record.
Yeah, I obsessed on these records unknowingly. I didn't know I was going to be a musician. I didn't know nothing about music, but I knew what I could feel and what I liked. So there is that I'm going to take in whatever setting. But when you add the organ to that, and you can actually access that spiritual connection with the sound and the timbre of the instrument, being the organ, that's a special thing So maybe you're right that that's what it is, that connection and what it brings up, what it conjures up.
Do you think that back in the late '60s, well, I wouldn't even say the late '60s because soul jazz was here in the '60s? Because you can put guys like Junior Walker,
Mm-hmm.
guys like
Mm-hmm.
Sam the Man Taylor. Those guys played a lot of soul jazz.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that
And even T-Bone Walker.
yeah,
You know,
yeah,
I mean, he's leaning like right up close to jazz.
yeah.
You know, yeah.
You being in Chicago and T-Bone Walker being part of that whole collective
Mhm.
session musicians in Chicago, what's the music scene like in Chicago now versus it was 30, 40 years ago?
Well, okay, so I can't speak to 30 years. I've been there for 30 years. So I'll say that one of the takeaways now that I see is that there is the freedom to be yourself there. You're not beholden to popular styles and sounds and influences in the same way that you are, say, in New York, because everybody's trying to eat, and there's like 50 people trying to eat on that instrument, and everybody's trying to be like the person that's eating the feast, like the king, whoever the king may be, or the queen, and whatever. So there's not that mindset in Chicago. It's more in a more open terrain in terms of influence and creativity and just being yourself. And I also think that, sometimes people don't, they actually, this is the impression that I got when I first moved there. It was like, why is everybody talking about Second City all the time? Like, I get it, but I'm not going for that. I'm from the first city, and I don't care where I am. I'm trying to do what I'm trying to do. It doesn't matter what city. So I think that sometimes people approach their endeavors in the music field. I'm just relegated to that mindset. They kind of limit themselves and think, well, we're just doing this and not gonna. Less and less of that now, because you have, Micaiah McCraven, Greg Ward. You have people that are coming out in independent ways on the fringes of the establishment, be in New York or whatever, however jazz works, I don't know. But there are certain young people that are not limited in their thinking and how they approach what they're trying to do. So I mean, I always felt like one of those people, and maybe some of that had to do with the fact that I came from here. So I wasn't concerned with what limitations were supposed to be. I forget what the question was.
No,
you were talking about the scene in
Chicago, yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
And see,
Yeah.
it's funny, limitations, because I think a lot of that has to do with you being groomed by two very instrumental mentors in your musical career. And I'm talking about Dave Grusin and Larry Rosen, GRP.
Mhm.
When you came out, they pretty much, I know they had some things that they wanted to impart on you as a musician, but when you coming from New York, going out into the bigger world, did you have any kind of apprehensions when you were working with them as far as creating your own voice?
Oh, yeah. I didn't think I was ready to record a record at 19. I remember calling up colleagues and elders. I called Omar Hakim, who was a friend of mine, and we had worked together. I knew him in high school, and then we worked together with Tom Brown and all of that. And so we were friends. And I called him and I said, man, the GRP offered me a record deal, and I don't think I'm ready to make a record. And I called Buddy Williams and said the same thing. And they both told me, dude, first of all, you're ready. Second of all, you can become more ready as you record and after you record and while you're recording. Man, don't worry about it. You're gonna be fine. So yeah, I didn't. The fortunate thing for me was that I was surrounded by
Greatness.
friends and greatness. Yeah, Marcus Miller, Omar Hakim, Sekou Bunch, Terry Burris, Bernard Wright, Donald Blackman. These are great musicians that were supporting me and were, yeah. So I was in good hands. And then Dave and Larry, but prior to that, I mean, really, the thing that instilled some belief in, energy beyond what can be seen was the associations of, like, with Sonny Rollins and with Al Haig, Walter Bishop Jr., I knew that something was going on that was way beyond my control for me to be able to meet and play with these people, people that played with Bird and Sonny Rollins. Like, I'm not doing this, because I realized or figured at one point prior to that you know what, this is a pipe dream. I love jazz, but what I love has already happened, and I'm never going to be involved in it in the way that I really want to be involved, like with these people on these records, all these records that I collected. It's not going to happen. It's already happened. Here's the documentation right here. And then about a year later, other things started to happen with these kind of people. I was like, okay, let me just keep doing what I'm doing and see what happens, And then from that experience and that impetus is when I met Dave Grusin and Larry Rosen, and I already believed in something else by then.
And Bobby, too, another thing that was very important, it wasn't just jazz. It was rhythm and blues.
Right.
You played it all. And that, I think, is what's really missing now with a lot of today's musicians. They're staying in just one lane. And I think what made you guys great musicians was the fact that you, even if it was a session date, if it was a jingle, or whether it was a rock date or a funk record or R&B or jazz, you guys got you were really getting your palms wet in this industry.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I remember about my little group of guys is that we weren't super concerned with styles and genres and categories and titles and stuff. We were just trying to make good music. We knew what music was good in any style. I mean, you hear jazz musicians, you hear elders talk about the fact that when they talked about music, they didn't call it jazz. They never referred to it as anything. They were just playing music. And that's what I remember about us. And I've always been a jazz guitarist. If there's a definition for that, there is one in my mind. And it's got the person has a clean tone. He doesn't really use effects, and they play with a certain melodicism linearly, and there's a heritage for that. And but I can put on different shoes, I can go in different houses and still be that same person, and some of the great, I've got the model from some of the greats who were able to do that, just be themselves, but be in different environments and just give themselves to that environment and have the environment wash over them, and something different happens, So yeah, I'm open to that.
Sonny Rollins isn't playing anymore
Mhm.
because of health issues.
Mhm.
Looking back at this man's career, this man really, every decade, Sonny dropped some jewels differently than he did in the 50s,
Right.
60s, 70s, and 80s. How important is that now for the next generation, especially guitarists that you're seeing now, that they have to really bring something different and don't get stuck with the past? Leave
Yeah.
your own mark now.
Yeah, I just I gave a lesson yesterday to a student here in the New York area, and he could play. And that's the one, excuse me, you can edit that out. One thing I said to him was something like that about realizing your own voice, which is a process, it's something that hopefully happens to you, that you have the realization and that you accept what you or embrace what you hear that is different and not quite right, but it's me. So, okay, what can I do with this? Um, and there's that, and then there's the issue or the part of the process that involves time, and you say every 10 years or so, um, you, know, you can say that same thing for Miles Davis and just people of that ilk that had different periods in their careers. Wes Train, they've got a period of years, a number of years where they did something and then they moved on and did something else, and that was phenomenal, and they did that for a number of years and they moved on, they did so, no matter how short their careers were, right? Wes's career was what, 10 years?
Train was young. His was, yeah.
Mm-hmm. But look at all the periods of their sound,
Yeah.
right? And all the music that they left, documenting those periods. That's incredible to me. So, that takes time. Saying all that to say that takes time. You've got to believe, and you've got to be prolific, and you've got to focus and build and create things, and then do it for as long as you need to, and then you move on. It's part of life and nature, I think. Hopefully, you do some things for a while, and then it's time to do something else.
That'll do it again for another edition of the Pace Report, reporting live here at Dizzy's, here at Jazz at Lincoln Center here in New York City. I'd like to personally congratulate and thank the incomparable Bobby Broom for his time. Make sure you go out and support his latest album, Soul Fingers, which is on the Megaforce Records imprint, which is now available on iTunes as well as Amazon.com. Make sure you go out and support him. Go to his website, BobbyBroom.com, to find out his upcoming tour dates. I'd like to personally thank the staff and management here at Dizzy's for their warm hospitality, as well as the staff at Jazz at Lincoln Center. As always, please visit my website, www.thepacereport.com, for my weekly column, as well as my past segments. And make sure you share, subscribe, and like my segments on YouTube as well as Vimeo. Until next time, remember, if it's in the groove, it'll make you move. Till next time, peace.